Good morning, and we're live here in New York, and also Gustav over in London. Doing This Week in Native, just talking through all the stories that we've curated and found from around the internet and shared in our weekly newsletter. This week we've gone through a bit of an upgrade process. Normally we'd be going direct from the iPhone. This week we've managed to figure out how to use some fancy streaming software. The fancy streaming software doesn't make us fancy streamers, but it's definitely a step up.
My favorite band.
What's that? Fancy streamers.
Fancy streamers.
Is it actually a band?
No.
Never heard of it.
It could be. But so we've figured that out. I'm here in New York, so is Jess, and Ari's across the table. And we've also got this little fancy scene switcher, so we can swap the stream over to the content we're looking at, which is pretty nice. And I thought, why don't we just get into it? I think it's been an interesting few weeks. Facebook has dominated the dialogue in the marketplace. With all the Cambridge Analytica data leaks, them not maybe managing the PR as effectively as they could be, and there's also started to be some advertiser backlash. I think we saw Firefox, they came out and said we're pausing our Facebook advertising. We also paused our Facebook advertising as well. I think we agree that consumers' data should be looked after, and we also agree that it looks like it hasn't been. And I think we as a company would like to see that respected, because this is an important ecosystem, and well, it doesn't exist unless we have both sides playing ball. So yeah, do you have any thoughts on the Facebook stuff, Ari?
Yeah. I think that we're reaching an interesting point where for the first time consumers, and not just us who are in the industry, are starting to understand what's been happening with them with native ads, or excuse me, with digital ads.
There's greater general understanding now of what fairly well known in the industry, right?
Yeah, like I've had people for years when I tell them I work in digital advertising or digital media will say, oh, those ads that follow me around the internet.
Yeah.
I think they're first starting to understand how that's happening and why that's happening.
Yeah.
And I've seen the first non-tech people jumping into the delete Facebook thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. This week I saw a lot happening on Twitter. There's always a lot happening on Twitter, but it feels like we might really be at a tipping point. Like we've got GDPR coming into play in Europe. We've got all this stuff happening here.
Yeah.
I think it'll be really interesting to see how brands move forward and how the platforms move forward.
Yeah. I think one thing that's interested me is the delete Facebook movement, and some of my less technical friends, and when I say less technical, mainly not in the marketing industry, removing the Facebook app. In reality, I think I removed it in 2014. I haven't had it for years. Every now and again, I'll put it on to look at something specifically. But a lot of the data that people are seeing is because they've allowed it via the app. And I actually did the download of all of my Facebook data to have a look. And there are a lot of things that were in the news that weren't present in my data dump, which was interesting.
That was interesting.
If you're on Android, it was pulling in your SMS data. That's not cool.
Yeah, what wasn't cool for me was seeing certain bands and artists that were capturing my data that I had nothing to do with, never liked. I was like, how did Facebook, or why does Facebook think I actually like artist X? What was the name of the band I just made up?
The streamers.
The fancy streamers.
Well, actually, in mine, there were a few sharing the advertising info. There weren't many interests. And I think that's because I've consciously gone and unliked a bunch of things. In a previous life, I used to help manage plenty of brands' Facebook pages. I had like 50 pages on there that I was actually an admin on. So I did a bit of a run through and was like, I need to remove all this because I'm only seeing my own content. But so yeah, I think it's quite interesting. We'll see how the next few months play out. Hopefully the end result is a clearer picture from Facebook of how the data is used, scenarios when it's not used, and more control over it.
It's funny, I was just checking in on Twitter, and I see that invasion of privacy is trending as a hashtag. And I was like, that is very relevant, but really it's the name of Cardi B's new debut album that came out today, which is getting rave reviews. But also...
marketing genius.
Yeah, brilliant naming of the album.
Yeah, that's it. So, next up, I think we've got LinkedIn launches native video ads. So what does everyone think about this? Like, clearly a offering. I think part of the argument is LinkedIn is a brand safe environment. But what do you think, Gustav? Like, this is something that you would be thinking about as an active marketer for us.
It's interesting because they ran a study that they found out that 50% or nearly 50% of B2B advertisers said that capturing their audience's attention was a top challenge, and this is kind of their way of launching into, this is how you can do it better, build brand awareness through video for sponsored content. They also have video for company pages now, so they can share their culture, products, news events. Really interesting, and it looks like when it's paired with matched audiences, it's a strong offering for B2B brands. So
that's quite killer though, right? So you can take your prospect list from your website or a database, pass it to LinkedIn, then target videos to them. What's your sense on, should you do that or should you do YouTube? Because you can do the same thing.
That's interesting. I would try both depending on the brand, and then I'd see what works best for me. And I think there's always you find a sweet spot. What works for your particular brand and your interests. So I think always do the split tests, and then you'll see. You'll find your own way. Depending on objective.
And just one more layer. What's your gut feel? Do you think the results are going to be the same as Facebook video, where people are actually just scrolling past your video rather than actually watching it?
It's interesting because it's down to perception of how you're using your app. So I'm going to wait and see as to how people pick it up. Maybe it's different because they're expecting to see updates from their favorite brands. Whereas on Facebook, you might not have that perception. So that's a really interesting thing that I'm going to wait and see to see how it gets picked up.
Interesting.
I think the last line of the article is really what caught my attention. Obviously, I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. I love it. I think it's a great platform. The ability to reach more people with sponsored messaging is great. I also noticed the different language they use, the sponsored video, sponsored content, as well as native. But to me, the last line about third-party measurement and viewability. Obviously, I think we'd all like to see that agreement was signed with Nudge.
It doesn't say Nudge here.
It doesn't say Nudge here, but nonetheless, it's worth noting that we're living in an environment in 2018 where even a trusted platform, and all the trusted platforms understand the power of third-party verified measurement and reporting. And that's just a testament to the lack of trust that exists within our industry.
Well, I think it's a lack of trust, but it's also, there are a lot of advertising options. The marketplace is changing quite a bit. this is a safe way for brands to keep up to pace and to continue to experiment. It's almost like insurance. Like, I'll try something new, and this just makes sure I'm getting what I've asked for.
Yep.
I'm excited to see how this pans out, especially because I feel like they have a bit of an advantage when it comes to targeting people, because people voluntarily talk about their interests, so it's easier to get to the right audience.
And also, in fairness, it's a B2B environment. If I'm trying to target customers and prospects, if they're on LinkedIn, it's a great place. If they're on YouTube, maybe they're not in B2B mode. Right? So I think it's a solid offering. All right. What do we have up next?
The paradigms at war.
Ah, yes, digital marketing paradigms at war. So this was the long read of the week, and I've just got it loading here. And so I quite enjoyed it. I think the biggest discussion was, is this a duck or a rabbit? I'm not sure if that's what the author was going after. But I think give this a read. It's just kind of a good state of the nation for digital marketing at the moment. Just talking about all the different trends and where the paradoxes are.
I think it's important to note that the second one is called the banner ad, and it kind of is a testament to what we're doing and our belief in content and native advertising, because clearly the author of this article agrees that that's where digital marketing is going.
That must be very smart.
One of the key takeaways that the author shares that really speaks to me is realize that quality media will always cost more. Be suspicious of good deals. So whether it's brands and their procurement teams that are looking to get costs down, or their agencies that are looking to save some money on margin, you have to. We always talk about this here. You have to think about your behavior online. We're doing some retargeting right now of our own, and we're being very careful about what sites our advertising appears on, and making sure it's the right audience and that it's quality. Whether it's on social, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's programmatic, whether it's native. These are the drivers of your business. This is your brand that you're putting out there. I'm going to come back and talk a little bit more about some of the stuff I saw at the A&A brand. But ultimately, your brand is paramount when you're trying to sell anything. And where it sits, and obviously we see that with brand safety, we see that with crappy programmatic networks. You gotta take it seriously.
What have we got up next? Spotify IPO. So Spotify IPO, was it this week? It was this week. Lots of chat around the IPO mechanism. They didn't do a normal IPO where you go and build a book of investors who agree to buy at a certain price. They basically had their list price and they just listed. I think this is a bit more common in other countries, but less so here. And so they got a lot of chat around that. I think the article this week from TechCrunch was just talking about what does this mean now that they're public? Like, what does this mean for the new advertising offerings?
I like the suggestions that TechCrunch makes for Spotify and how to kind of bring more sponsorship to this platform, like trying to introduce more recommendations that artists actually pay for, because it might not come off as invasive, and it can obviously benefit Spotify because it's new revenue, benefit the artists because they get discovered, and it'll be a good investment for them as well. I wouldn't mind getting targeted by artists who Spotify's AI thinks I'd actually like.
I think it's smart. Spotify has dipped their toes, I guess, into some of the ad products a little bit over time. Some of the I'm premium, so I don't see any of these where the banner takes over the screen anymore, but I presume they're still going.
Yeah.
I would suspect even premium members will start to get like highlighted artists or something like that, or some sort of promoted stream or playlist.
Yeah, I definitely forgot what it feels like to have the interruption between every 3 songs, so I don't miss that.
You don't miss that.
I think it's as I started reading the top of the article, I thought immediately of United Masters, which is then mentioned later on in the article, a startup that recently raised $70 million from Alphabet and from Andreessen Horowitz. It was founded by Steve Stout, who's the founder of Translation, the agency, and a long time very serious player in the music industry. And it's still a little bit unclear to me what their actual plan is as a business.
Yeah.
It seems to be about helping artists go more directly to their fans, right? And there's a couple different plays for that happening in the music industry right now. What excites me about it, and whether it's United Masters or even with Spotify, with the data they have around artists, more and more you have, not more and more, but the artists are involved in brands, and artists are involved in brand sponsorships.
Yeah.
So what you can start doing to use that data, right?
Yeah.
So there was something today about referencing Cardi B, not to go back to invasion of privacy, out in stores now. Not to go back to that, but the fact that she was in the Amazon Super Bowl ad, right? So now all of a sudden there's some sort of connection has been made that Cardi B and her audience would be relevant to the target that Amazon is reaching. And when you have something like Spotify that truly knows who you're playing and how you're playing, and you target by artist and by interest, and then start incorporating larger executions for the brands that have relationships with those artists. It really builds a strong ecosystem.
Yeah.
How long until they're just going to start measuring Spotify's ad offerings?
I think we got a brief a couple of years ago to look at it. It's a pretty close-knit environment. How would you feel if you visit TechCrunch and you've got an ad targeted to you because you've listened to an artist?
I use an ad blocker.
All right. So Ari's out.
TechCrunch is currently...
Well, because I mean, this is the chat of Facebook, right? And Spotify, if they're looking for new advertising revenues, this will be something on the table to go to brands and go, you're doing a big Super Bowl video, you've partnered with this artist, why don't you target all of their fans across the internet? Okay with it?
I don't mind.
Yeah, I don't mind that either.
Yeah.
As long as they're approaching you with a lot of branded content.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's where it's got to be. I shared with you a few days ago, or maybe it was last week, I saw Zelle, the new money exchanging app that's been launched by a number of the banks together. We're doing some native work on SoundCloud. And some playlists and whatnot. And then I can't believe we missed it, but did you guys see last week Wendy's put out, as a hip hop fan I should have checked for it, but Wendy's put out a whole album of diss tracks towards McDonald's, I believe.
What?
Yeah. Just talking about music and advertising and native behavior. I think it was McDonald's. I have to go back and...
I love Wendy's.
We'll talk about that more next week.
We'll look that back. Under Campaigns of the Week, we shared something you wrote, Ari, on Medium.
Yeah.
So emotion and storytelling, I guess, is a good summation.
Yeah, emotion and storytelling, which is also funny timing because obviously one of the posts that we also shared in This Week in Native Ads was about why brands should care about emotion on social media. That was the Native Within Native, Turner Ignite doing sponsored content with Ad Age. Yeah, I was down in Laguna, beautiful Laguna, last week for the ANA Brand Masters Conference. And there were two main thoughts that I had coming out of it. One was that there were a lot of very sad videos, or not sad, emotional videos and content, which I think is great. It breaks through the noise. The other, just unrelated, was that marketers seem to be really scared of AI. And that leads me to believe that most of them are unaware what AI actually is or what it means, and it's been set up by within our industry is almost this scarecrow of the robots coming to take our jobs, as opposed to tools that are making our jobs easier and helping us extrapolate more meaning from data, which I guess is something that until I was working at a platform that really was vocal about incorporating AI, I maybe myself didn't understand, but there were a lot of questions about people fearing AI. But back to the actual content, there was really some amazing work. It's obviously linked in This Week in Native Ad. It's on my Medium and my LinkedIn as well. One particular ad genuinely had me sitting in the room with 600 marketers, like in tears.
Oh, really?
I'm a dad, and they really seem to be targeting dads with some of these videos. The Story of Lucy by Windex was just incredibly heartwarming. I think it was really interesting looking at some of the videos, the juxtaposition of the videos that were shared that were focused on females, on a female audience, like Jim Beam. Like the Jim Beam invitation by Mila Kunis was about inspiring women to order a drink that their insight showed them is traditionally a male drink, right? Whereas most of the advertisements I saw that were targeting dads were just focused on being incredibly emotional. Right? So obviously there's a lot happening culturally in the world today about gender roles and gender norms, and to really see that coming from brands in that way. I think as far as changes and larger things happening socially as well, Vineet Mehra, I believe that's how you say his name, for the CMO of Ancestry.com, showed two clips that were just really strong. One, Declaration Descendants, and the other called The DNA Journey, which was the DNA Journey specifically one of the most thought-provoking, important pieces of advertising that I've actually seen in some time. So I recommend everyone go and check that out. The one last thing coming out of the A&A brand, and this was very similar to what I heard at A&A Media, and it's very similar to what we talk about, and a lot of people, it's been top of mind, is people lamenting the separation of creative and media, and excited to try and push it back together. So nothing groundbreaking there, but something that we're always thinking about here at Nudge, something that we're going to watch as it continues to impact the way content is bought and sold. Interesting.
Good stuff. Could you share a tweet with a link to This Week in Native, just from the video? Excellent. So we'll share the link with all of this in there. There's a few. We won't bring you to tears yet. It's a little early on Friday. Maybe after a few more kombuchas.
There we go.
Super happy hour.
What else do we have? I like some of the smartest commentary from Leslie Ali Walker, the ECD at JWT. She's just having a bit of a riff around why brands should consider long-form content. She's in particular focusing on video, but I couldn't agree more. Like, if you're going to invest in content, you may as well do it well. And if you've got a good story to tell, be brave and make the effort.
And that's interesting, because last week 2 weeks ago when I went to Adweek Europe, they were talking about that as well, and the investment and the importance of native video, with the fact that long form will become more important as we go. It's also that the technology that now comes with 5G really helps bring that to life. It just makes everyone able to really consume lengthier, more,
lengthier content, higher quality. To think about streaming rather than storage. The 5G stuff is quite interesting. I was stuck in traffic last week, and with 5G, having a drone to go out the window and tell you how bad the traffic is and reroute you is quite feasible now.
Is that what you were doing in New Zealand?
No. What else do we have? Data points of note, quite rich this week.
I think we had a couple things just talking about the growth and evolution of the space, right?
Yeah.
We saw the tech guide from the Native Ad Institute, which is significantly larger than it was before.
Yeah.
We saw Tronc renaming, at least, if not reestablishing their content studio.
Yeah.
We saw Triple Lift opening up their content dial marketplace. Yeah. We saw the Gardner post that was talking about the end of the term content marketing as this advertising just becomes more ubiquitous. So in native, in storytelling, in branded content, sponsored content, native content, content marketing.
You can't say content marketing. It's
whatever we call it, there's a lot happening.
Yeah.
And I think to bring it full circle, it really ties back to a lot of what we're seeing with people starting to understand what's happening with their data and using more ad blockers and cleaning out cookies, right? I forgot who we were speaking with yesterday, and they mentioned that their research has shown them that folks are cleaning out cookies once every 2 weeks. So
I think it's Comscore, isn't it?
I don't recall.
Yeah.
I don't want to be on the record incorrectly, but I really think we're at a tipping point, and it's almost like this first phase of aggressive internet digital advertising is maybe coming to an end, right? I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's only going to get more aggressive, we tend to have short memories, but it feels like the rise of meaningful storytelling and true thoughtful storytelling, genuine, right? To go back to Annie Grandstein from Washington Post Brand Studio talking about people being natural skeptics and they'll see through if your content is disingenuous. But the data stuff, the rise of content, and down with shitty marketing.
Yeah, the industry's maturing, right?
That's a nicer way of putting it.
A little bit succinct. I think it is quite interesting. We are seeing more content studios open up, which I think is a good thing. That does indicate where the market is at, how attractive it is for publishers to be going and investing in it. Of course, it brings the need for more measurement.
Give us a call.
And I guess, shall we have a look at the Nativo shared some of their 2017 spend data, looking at the biggest verticals investing in native. They had automotive at 17%, travel at 15%, finance and insurance at 13%, technology at 11%. I think there's a few things interesting in their data set. In other releases, I have to look at the source. Entertainment has always been the number one. So I guess we do have to frame this up. This is where Nativo is winning, from what I can tell. But automotive does always trend quite high, which makes sense. Buying a car is a big purchase.
As is buying a vacation.
As is buying a vacation. But also the purchase is twofold. Like once you own a car, your friends knowing that you bought a good car is also very important. Like the marketing doesn't stop at purchase. It's for the life cycle of the car. I guess with travel, maybe a little bit less so.
Oh, it's the same thing. You put up all the pictures when you're on vacation.
Yeah.
Your friends want to know where you went, and then you had a long time.
And finance and insurance, like complex products. Explain it to me. Why do I need it? How does it work? Why is this the best offering for me? Food and drink is interesting. Health and fitness.
Food and drink, recipes.
True.
Well, I mean, of course, there's a lot of different business verticals, but like business being so low, retail, entertainment, retail.
That's an interesting one here. We need to look into that.
I don't know if I've seen any retail content. like just as a consumer, I've seen e-commerce content. I guess I have seen some Macy's stuff and JCPenney, but I wouldn't classify them as retail, but they are retail.
It's funny because
I've seen Whole Foods. Would Whole Foods be retail?
That might be more food and drink.
Actually, yeah.
Retail, when you think of clothing, I find it interesting because I always think of the root of like native and branded content as being throwback to the world of magazines. And you think of what a significant role fashion has had in that world, and how much usage there. It's interesting that it hasn't seemed to cross over to the internet in the same way.
Yeah.
Some brands are
yeah. But definitely give this report a bit of a read. I think one final one which surprised me was Google Chrome's mobile article recommendations. So I don't use Google Chrome on my phone, so I haven't seen it, but they have articles for you, so that when you open your recommended content, and some Chartbeat data released says that this is driving more traffic than Twitter. So an important thing for publishers to be paying attention to, but also advertisers. I suspect most of this is Android-driven traffic, and I'm not sure how much is US, but it's certainly worth paying attention to. Like, if you can be on the opening tab when someone opens their phone and they've got some time to kill, that's pretty valuable.
Or if you have an enticing headline.
Pardon?
Or if you have an enticing headline.
If you've got an enticing headline. I do notice on Firefox they've got like recommendations from Pocket. They do tend to be more long form articles, but I do find that quite handy. But I think the thing to think about is there are lots of opportunities to get attention and reach consumers online. Just because one mechanism is most popular doesn't mean it's the best or the best return on investment. Like it is important to keep exploring and seeing what else is out there. And I guess that is why the number of vendors has increased in the space. Was it 272 to 400 or something?
A significant increase.
Yeah.
People are paying attention.
Well, the thing is, like the term content marketing going away, the same thing will happen, right? A year from now, that'll just be what everyone's doing. Because like a lot of that growth is someone saying, I now have a native offering. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a new studio opening up.
Yeah. Or a new
studio renaming itself.
I'd love for us to do just a list of all the studios. There's quite a few now. They are, despite what they say, they are content agencies. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think I've seen a comprehensive list online of all the different content studios. And that would be valuable for brands to know.
We should do some digging. I think I've seen some, but probably none through the lens of Nudge and our unique perspective.
Yeah.
That's on my to-do list.
Let's do it. We should also, when we share campaign of the week, I know we say the publisher, but maybe link to the content studio as well, if they've got a website or Twitter or something like that.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts for the week ahead? How has this week changed? How you'll be thinking about native next week? I think Ari's got a great point around the terms are evolving and changing. LinkedIn was talking more about sponsored. It was interesting. LinkedIn used the word sponsored. Everyone writing about it used native.
And in the actual text itself, they use the term native as well.
Yeah.
It's just a headline that they call sponsored. Yeah, I'm most interested in what's happening with on the data front and the pushback to Facebook from both consumers and brands. I think that's going to have implications for all of us.
Yeah. Ari and I were on a call this week, and they're asking about our data policies. And I forget this because we've been very clean with our data up front. So other analytics companies have been known for either reselling or piggybacking a whole bunch of other pixels that you aren't aware of. And we're chatting with someone, they're like, what redirects? We're like, we're not pushing your data elsewhere. Go have a look. Here's the clean steps that we do. Here's how we avoid ingesting data that we shouldn't. And here's what we do with the data. And so I think it's great that marketers are asking those questions. Because it is frustrating when you see someone who's being quite nefarious with data. Yeah. All right. Unless there's anything else, I think that's a wrap.
I think that's a wrap.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
We will catch you next week. You can give us a follow on Twitter at Give It a Nudge. We'll share all the links. Please visit the blog and have a click through. If you've got any feedback, we'd love to hear it. And just send us a tweet. Thank you.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.